So Shabbat Shuvah, Shabbat of return, and I wanted to use this play words and return to the past. Because how else do you know where to go if not really knowing your past and people who made possible your life? It used to be that Shabbat Shuvah was one of the 2 days in Jewish calendar when rabbis would give sermon. Because of that, the sermons were very, very long. Because the one was the Shabbat before Yom Kippur, and the other one was Shabbat before Pesach. And both had functioned to remind people of all the laws, of what to do and what not to do on these festivals. So I would like to use this meaning of Shabbat Shuvah for slightly extended version of a sermon, but not as long as it used to be, not hours. Don't worry. So I would like to return to the past, to the founding members and key thinkers of liberal Judaism, and see what they thought of the type of Judaism we belong to today. I deliberately included extended quotes so that it wouldn't be just me who would interpret these quotes, but we would learn together in a way. So I included some long quotes from three thinkers. So it was very convenient and timely for me that this book was just printed. One of our members, an honorary archivist of the LGS, Brian Diamond, just published a book about one of our founding members, Claude Montefiore. So and I will begin by quoting from this book, and who knows, maybe it will inspire some of you to get it and to read the biography of this exceptional person and thinker. So by the end of the 19th century, before the establishment of liberal Judaism in the UK and really in America, the progressive movement was significant in Germany. And in fact, that was the place where it was founded. So Montefiore encountered this international movement, this new movement, whilst studying in Berlin in 1882. So here is how he describes progressive Judaism in one of his early articles. So it represents the universalism which the progressive advance of Jewish liberalism has attained. It believes that Judaism is capable of development. It denies that all Judaism is found within the Bible. It marks a new and even momentous departure within the history of Judaism. Those Torah laws, which have no religious significance today, are no longer binding. Quite radical thinking for Judaism and for that time. So, and people often ask me, and I know that people ask other progressive rabbis, about the role of significance of Torah. If you don't see Torah laws as binding and God-given, they say, where does the authority of Judaism come from? To explore this idea, we need to turn to Montefiore's book, Outlets of Liberal Judaism. It was first published 30 years after this, in 1912. In it, the Montefiore developed his thinking, and there is a chapter there. And the chapter is entitled of Prophetic Judaism. Liberal Judaism may still describe itself as a religion of law. It still looked to the Pentateuch, Chumash, or Torah, as to one of its main sources, but even more intimately is it connected with, even more closely related to the prophets. There are two great characteristics of the prophetic monotheism, two modes in which their conception of religion is expressed. The first is their well-known but never obsolete opposition and antagonism to ritual and ceremonial and forms regarded as important or as the main or predominant constituent of religion. Their passionate conviction that the real worship of God and the real essence of religion consists not in such forms, but in right doing. I desire love and not sacrifice. What does the Eternal One require of you? Justice, compassion, humanity, or humility. Not sacrifices, not worship, not ticking the box of fasting on Yom Kippur. This. He continues. I will keep the quite gendered language because it was written this way. If a man observes forms and thinks himself a pious soul for doing so, he is on the high road to becoming self-righteous. He is on the high road to becoming an example of one of those types of character which were abhorrent to the prophetic mind. The prophet taught that the true forms and rituals of religion, the true outward expressions of the worship and the love of God, were to be found in ethical and not in the specifically religious acts. Those who are in any degree familiar with the prophetic writings know that the justice and compassion of which they speak are of a markedly social type. The prophets are the spokesmen of the poor. What they look forward is to a state of things in which there will be a less inequality than exists in the society around them. Not only will all know God, but all will be happy. And all, I think I may go so far, will be prosperous. So from 1899, Montefiore, along with Lily Montague, was a founder of liberal Judaism movement. Or originally it was a religious Jewish union, later it became known as Union of Liberal and Progressive Synagogues, and now we know it as Liberal Judaism. In the same year, 1899, Lily Montague published her historical article, Spiritual Possibilities of Judaism Today. And here are a few important extracts from Lily Montague's article. Until Jews are honest enough to recognize that the majority of them are either devoted to ceremonialism at the expense of religion, or indifferent both to ceremonialism and to religion, until they have energy to examine their religious needs and courage to formulate them, they are courting comfort at the expense of truth. And they must fail to restore to Judaism its life and the endless possibilities inherent in life. Then she describes two kinds of Jews, what she called East End Jews, those who follow strict law without any sign of modernity, and West End Jews, who we would call today cultural Jews, who don't practice Judaism in everyday life, but respect some of the Jewish heritage. Montague concludes her article with this vision, and I think this is still important today. So before we Jews can claim to be religious brotherhood, before we can pretend to possess a faith through which we can speak tidings of salvation and peace to all nations, we must be able to rest our title on our effort rather than on the accident of our birth. Whatever the creed of his father, whether Roman Catholic, Protestant, or Jewish, a religious man must seek and discover God for himself. Today, if she would write today, she would say person, of course. I believe that in Judaism will be found the methods by which God can be most surely approached, and that these methods are certain ultimately to prevail universally. But no fresh discovery can be made exactly on the lines of the past. The temperament of one generation differs from that of another, and life is only possible when it can adapt itself to environment. Let us dare to speak with courage to our brothers and sisters, and to our sons and daughters. Let us bid them not hesitate in their search after the divine, because they use data and methods not already tried by their ancestors. Judaism is strong enough and wide enough to inspire them and their children forever. Let us speak them. Let us ask them to make progressive demands upon it. Let us tell them indeed that they can only be Jews if they do live up to the ideals of truth and morality expounded by the best teachers of their age. So they say that you're Jewish not if your mother or father is Jewish, but if your grandchildren are Jewish. And I think I find this definition just beautiful. It conveys real life rather than formal approach to it. So how can we make Judaism speak to the teenagers and young adults of today? This is the key question for all of us to answer. You're probably thinking that the third person I'm going to quote is Rabbi Israel Matak. And in fact, it would be logical, as he wrote a lot about the future of liberal Judaism. And he was called the architect of the liberal Judaism. But I'm going to speak about a different scholar, Rabbi Dr. Leo Back. So this passage, the passage I'm going to quote, comes from the speech from the First World Union for Progressive Judaism Conference, held in Berlin in 1928. The title of Back's speech is A Message of Liberal Judaism for Today's Jew. For today's Jew. One thing can be absolutely clear to us today. We must not want to be up to date, to be of today. But if this is so, what then do these words mean? Which, and with good reason, are our subject to explore. A message of today's Jew. And what accordingly does the term liberal Judaism mean, which claims to define our entire status? The answer is the following. The required target is not people nor a form of Judaism merely interested in the present day and serving the present only. The term aims at something different, something upon which everything depends, a form of Judaism and a type of people understanding history. Seeing the course of history, recognizing that what has transpired and what will transpire. This was therefore the double task that history gave the Jewish people. To live in this European world, to come to terms with its respective conditions, requirements and problems, and still not become a part of it. Not become separated from its own, to be an individual concerning religion and all things Jewish, and still remain within the context of his own history and the community created by it. If people, be it individuals, groups, nations, and communities, place their emphasis first of all on appearances, they will always to look at themselves and compare themselves with others. In other words, they will spend too much time in front of the mirror, trying to convince themselves of themselves. Judaism in the 19th century often had the tendency to ask how it could present itself the best way. Those who, by contrast, want to amount to something, they don't face themselves. They face the world as they want to be for this world. They look at their history and their future, and therefore check first and above all their essence and their path. When the constructive aspect is the main issue, the big tug sets in, since only then big ideas can lead to answers and bring about solutions. So, and he concludes, our task is as significant and difficult as no other possessed in history. And it means standing out there in the world with a humanism that's alive and that has been formulated by millennia, with the will to stand by the world and completely by oneself, and to take part in the best it has to offer, and thus to live it not only in terms of space, but also in terms of emotion, spirit, not only socially, but religiously as well, fully conscious, therefore, that we live for the world. To us, Jews of today, especially to the liberals among us, this task speaks with total sincerity. Those who don't accept it cannot be Jews of today, cannot be liberal Jews. So, what does it mean to be liberal Jews today? What's our role of the Jewish people in the world that tries to answer today's big questions? Is there anything that we Jewish people, or liberal Jews, or Jewish people in general, can offer to the society we live in? What is unique in us that we can help the world? We have unprecedented history. We have unique perspective on the world. What's the role of a liberal Jew in the world? I think, following example of our founders, of the giants on whose shoulders we stand, our role and responsibility is not to be shy. It is to be proud and use the lessons of our history, our wisdom, our stories, to inform the life choices of today. It is to be proud and use the lessons of our history, our wisdom, tradition, and make our community, make our country, make our planet the place we wish to live to our children. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will.